him a shot to do what?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. With me, as always, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, Martin Soares of Basketball Society. My guy, how we feeling?
What's up, man? What's up? Feeling good on another Tuesday night. Good to be here to talk some basketball. We got some good stuff to get into tonight. College season is underway. We got some good stuff to get into. and draft lottery video.
Bad habit.
We got.
We want to show lots of stuff.
Dallas hired them, and
Tyler Marsh being there from Spoon, but
about how they're taking all.
I mean,
but she's going line up with a broadcast. Let's do it. Yeah, coming up in the actively work Portland. That would Cleveland. We've got Toronto. I need
expansion mode. The Sixers aren't a team in Philly. I'm excited for the team in Golden State. I'm excited for the team in Portland. I'm excited for the team in Toronto. But as I said to you, right, and I said this jokingly, but I'm also looking forward to seeing the WNBA return to some of those other cities like Cleveland and Detroit and Miami. And I know that stuff is coming, but it just feels like with some of these announcements and some of these rollouts and some of the cities that they're prioritizing, at least for me, from someone who doesn't really have that connection to Philly the way that you do or like Germ does, that like it makes sense when you look at some of the cities that are on this list. Pittsburgh doesn't make any sense to me at all. This is no disrespect to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's a great city, but like we don't need Pittsburgh before Philly. I don't think we need Pittsburgh at all. But there's not it doesn't make sense because there's not a Pittsburgh NBA team. So why do we need a Pittsburgh WNBA team? Not to say that there has to be an NBA team in a city for there to be a WNBA team in the city, but that kind of makes sense. Like you want to go where you know that there are basketball fans presently. I feel like most residents of Pittsburgh just by default are Sixers fans because that's the city. That's the team that's in the closest city. So I don't want to see a WNBA team in Pittsburgh. I will say that. There's one city I don't want to see a team. It's in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh was shocking. Pittsburgh was shocking to see motion for Pittsburgh and just chatter about Philly. That was shocking.
Dude, you know what I thought about too? Just while we're talking about expansion, just real quick. Portland and Toronto, I think, and you and I have talked about this offline. I strongly believe that by 2027, we're going to officially have a conference playoff setup. And I can't wait for that, right? We're getting two teams. We'll have two teams added to the West. We'll probably look to add another team to the eastern side of the map so that we can do that. That, I think, will make some of these matchups that we're getting in the finals a little bit more interesting, a little bit more engaging because there will be an east-west component to it. Like right now, like it's cool to see the Liberty and the Lynx. Obviously, it was cool to see, like, it would have been cool to see, Liberty, Connecticut, but I don't want to keep seeing two teams from the same conference in the finals. I want to get back to having an East-West component. So that's the thing I'm most looking forward to. And if Philly is the team that needs to be added so that we can get to that in 2027, then I'm all in. I'll start a parade, and I'll be marching in that parade from now until 2027. If that's I will do it.
It's got to happen, man. It's got to happen. You made a good point. Too many legends. Philly's a basketball city. Philly, I mean, many people may not claim that and admit that, but it's got enough basketball history to claim basketball city.
Get Dawn Staley out here. She get a team up there in Philly in a heartbeat, man.
I mean, man, I'm like, is it going to take Dawn like being part of it, saying she'll coach the team? I mean, do we need some more Philly activation in there? Like, God, man, that's gotta happen.
If Kobe were still alive, he would certainly make sure that Philly team was locked and loaded for sure. Yeah. All right. It's time to switch to some college hoops. We're going to toss it to a reel, actually, that Martin posted on the page last week, and we're going to react and kind of unpack that conversation.
If you are familiar with South Carolina guard MiLaysia Fulwiley, then you'll probably agree with what I have to get off my chest right now. So in ESPN's latest college ranking before the season, they have MiLaysia Fulwiley slotted as the number 19 player in the country. Now, being ranked as a top 20 player in the country is no small thing, especially when she came off the bench and barely played big minutes in her freshman year. I'm not trying to cause any commotion, but as I look at this list and I scroll up and I see Tahina Powpow is ranked at 16 above MiLaysia Fulwiley. I don't agree with that. And it's nothing against Powpow. I love me some Powpow. She changed the whole dynamic for South Carolina from the perimeter last season. She led the country in three-point shooting percentage. Big time shot maker, big time leader, great basketball player. I just don't think she's better than this girl right here. And if you've seen them play, you probably agree with me. I don't think there's anything Powpow can do that MiLaysia Fulwiley can't do or can't do better or at a higher level. So honestly, I personally think that it's on South Carolina and Dawn Staley to make sure that we as a basketball society can better understand this season just how special and talented MiLaysia Fulwiley is. And to be perfectly honest, South Carolina's success this season might even depend on it.
Strong words from Martin Sories about MiLaysia Fulwiley. Looks like you're kind of pushing the narrative here that MiLaysia Fulwiley might be a little bit underrated. Is that what we're going for?
It's tough because, like I said, being ranked as a top 20 player in the country is, that makes you elite. I don't know if I'm saying that she has to be top 15 or she has to be top 10. Therefore, I don't know if it's just an underrated thing as much as, like I said in there, I don't know if we're getting, and I don't want to make this sound like an indictment on Dawn, but I just don't know if we're seeing the true full unleashed version of MiLaysia Fulwiley. And as I said, it's also not an indictment or a knock on Pow Pow or on Tessa or on Raven. I just think that MiLaysia is easily and by far the most talented guard in that group. And I think she's going to continue to, like she did at the end of the first half of this last game against NC State, she will go on runs that only she can go on, and she will continue to bail them out. And I don't think it's going to become like a thing. I'm not trying to make it a thing. I just feel like it should be more acknowledged that MiLaysia Fulwiley is the best guard on that team. I'm just waiting for that to become more known. I love Pow Pow. I got a long text from the dad of a very popular All-American in regards to this topic. He was responding to that video that I posted and gave me a whole manifesto on why it's Pow Pow and not MiLaysia. And I totally got where he was coming from. Didn't sway me on my feelings at all. I don't know if she's underrated. I just don't think we're truly grasping yet just how good she is.
That's an interesting thing to wrestle with. I agree with you. I don't know if underrated is the right word. What I will say, and this kind of stems from a conversation I was having over the weekend with someone that goes to my church. She's one of my mentors. We were kind of talking about her frustration that she was having with Raven Johnson specifically, because like she's just not hitting shots at the rate that she should be, or the rate that she has, she did last season. And she said, we need Raven Johnson to hit shots. And I just kind of like, but do we really need Raven Johnson to hit shots? Because I feel like that's what MiLaysia Fulwiley is for this team right now. Like, because you mentioned those runs that we've seen her go on that like only she can go on. That is like, MiLaysia is that player for us. Like when we need a shot in the arm, like, yeah, we'll look to Pow Pow. We look to Raven more so because they're older. They're the elder statesmen of the team. They've been in, moments when you expect them to hit shots, but MiLaysia just has energy that no one else on the team can replicate, that cause her to be able to put the team in positions when she's going on these 8-0 run, 10-0 run, 12-0 runs by herself, where there's a lot more energy in the on the floor, if that makes sense. And so you and I had a conversation on the show during the tournament about who the best player on this team was. And I think at that time you were kind of pushing for it to be acknowledged that MiLaysia was the best player on the team. And I was still really set in my ways of like, it's still Camilla, because Camilla's Camilla's the senior, Camilla's the go-to, Camilla's the one that needs all the touches, but Camilla's gone now. And when I look at these guards specifically, and I lamented about these guards 2 weeks ago when we kind of peeked into the season, I will admit that MiLaysia Fulwiley is probably the best guard on this team. And if she's not the best guard, if the word best is too touchy-feely for people, she's certainly the most dynamic guard on this team. And I think in this type of system, as a Dawn Staley player, being the most dynamic typically means you're the best. Like, there's not many players that have come through South Carolina under Dawn Staley's tutelage that weren't the best and also the most dynamic on the team, if that makes sense. I feel like in the Dawn Staley context, those two things are hand in hand. So I agree with you. I don't know if she's underrated, but I definitely think she's the best guard. I definitely think that she needs to be unleashed a little bit more because she's a sophomore, because she deserves it, and because she's shown us on numerous occasions in big moments that she has what it takes to lead this team and like be the difference between a win and a loss for South Carolina for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, the timing of that video was interesting because Pow Pow probably had the better game against NC State. I mean, she finished 23, and I mean, Pow Pow looks great this year. She's doing a little bit more off the dribble, getting to the basket a little bit more. But like I said in the video, this kind of turns into a talent conversation. Like I thought you were going to say what I was thinking, which is she's the most talented guard.
Yeah,
like that, I don't think even Dawn would dispute or argue with. But the word best, and most dynamic works too. She's easily that, but I think that equates to the same thing. She's the most talented. She's the most dynamic. But like Pow Pow was the best guard in spurts in that NC State game the other day. And that's what makes their guard unit so impressive, is that they each can kind of be the best guard for a few possessions or in certain moments. Like Pow Pow was, throughout the game kind of looking like their best guard. I just think in this instance, I feel like MiLaysia being easily the most talented has to be acknowledged and should be acknowledged. And again, I just think she's going to she's bought in. I don't see any signs of her having regrets. Like the girl hasn't lost a game, since in over a year, so and I think she enjoys that. Clearly that's why she went there, to be a winner and not just to be a 25 point per game scorer her first year out. But you make the point. I know we're going to talk about kind of the front court a little bit for South Carolina a little bit, but it's related to this because I think the way this group is set up now, again, I think MiLaysia's going to keep doing what she does, no complaints, coming off the bench, less minutes, whatever it is. But when she comes in, she's going to kick up and she's going to bail them out in moments when they're going to need it. And I think this is the year post Camilla, without that unfair advantage inside, where they're going to have games where they will need her to go off. Like they will need some 30 balls from MiLaysia this year. I think their defense is still really good. I mean, they're still a Dawn Staley coach team. So it's not like, they're going to be in shootouts with people, but I just think in those big moments we are going to find out in those moments all the way through the tournament. I'm looking, I think we're going to really see moments where it's like, okay, like they've got to let MiLaysia take over and it might just happen naturally, or they may need to let it happen. Like I said, in order for them to, especially if they're talking about repeating, like, listen, Raven wasn't hitting shots last year. Raven's not a shooter, bro. Like that's not happening. She'll hit shots here and there, but you're looking at a Draymond Green complex. Like she's not going to be hitting shots. Tessa hit shots. Pow Pow hit shots. MiLaysia they hit shots. Raven is the everything else. She'll set the table. She's going to play great defense. When she's open, she'll shoot it from time to time and she'll make it from time to time. That's just what I'm expecting from her. And I think that's fine for her. Like, I don't think they need her to be hitting more shots unless they're not doing what they need to do to make sure that their best guard is in control to score the ball and be loose, because that's going to make life easier for Raven and make her not have to hit as many shots where they don't have to rely on that.
That's a good point. And I want to put a pin in the size thing because I know we're going to get to that in just a second. But I wanted to ask you this question. We talk about the Aces a lot and how their guard trio of Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray, any combination of them at any given point in time is usually the best guard pair on the floor. All three of them together obviously gives most opposing guards issues. Would you, based on like how you feel about MiLaysia Fulwiley, would you say that there's not a guard duo that you could name on this South Carolina roster that's with like, is there a guard duo on this team that you could identify that's better than any guard duo that includes MiLaysia? If that makes sense. Like, would you take a Tahina Pow Raven Johnson, for example, guard duo over a Tahina Pow MiLaysia Fulwiley or a Raven Johnson MiLaysia Fulwiley duo? Like, is the talent of MiLaysia that overwhelming where like she has to be one half of the best guard duo on this team for the team to be successful?
I think so, but like I'd be good with Pow and Tessa. because
Okay.
they're both shot makers. Like you're
Mhm.
still there's always going to be an element missing because none of them can do what MiLaysia can do, in my opinion. But
Sure.
I mean, Pow and Tessa, that would be a strong. And look, I mean, Raven and Tessa is good. Raven and Pow is good. I wouldn't go that far, but I would just say that if it doesn't have MiLaysia, you're missing a component, that dynamic component that's going to differentiate you from other backcourts.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's toss it to some size. You alluded to the absence of Camila Cardoso. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago on the show. Let's dive into that a little bit more. In that same interview, when we talked with Coach Law, one thing that I think came up pretty early on, and something I was adamant about talking about, is what the future for South Carolina in the post would look like without Camila Cardoso being there. Obviously, Camila Cardoso left South Carolina last season to declare for the draft. She's now in Chicago alongside Angel Reese. Down low, we talked about in that episode, we have Adele Tack. You also have Sinai Fagan. I think both of them bring very different things to the table. I think they complement each other very well. I don't think either of them individually are going to by themselves replace the production offensively and defensively that Camila Cardoso provided while she was in South Carolina. But I do think, and we have seen, especially with Sinai Fagan, whether it's when Camila Cardoso was in that national championship run, step up and fill that role quite handily. I'm anticipating a lot of instances throughout the course of the season, especially when the matchup is favorable, where we have Adele Tack and Sinai Fagan on the court at the same time. And that's what I'm most interested for. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, how they play off of each other, and what that means as it relates to South Carolina competing for and hopefully winning their second championship in a row. So the question on the screen is South Carolina big enough? The answer is no. We are not. I know it's only been, we've only played 2 games this season, I think. I think we have our 3rd game tomorrow. So far through 2 games, Adele Tack and Sinai Fagan have not been doing at all what I said I hope that they'd be doing in that clip. The season's still young, so there's still time to grow. The one thing that I'm leaning on is the fact that what we know under Dawn Staley is that Dawn Staley knows how to mold each roster, specifically each year, into whatever it needs to take to win a championship, right? This roster is not going to be this is not going to look like an inside-out situation like what we saw last season, because they are missing a very, very valuable asset in someone like Camila Cardoso. Do I think that Sinai Fagan and Adele Tack can grow into that? Yes, both individually and collectively. But as it stands today, we are not big enough, which is why your point about MiLaysia Fulwiley likely being the best guard on this team and needing to be unlocked, that matters. Because if we can't, be a force down low, offensively, defensively on the boards, then our guards have to be clicking on all cylinders, and that starts with MiLaysia Fulwiley. Now, what I will say is Ashlyn Watkins is back. She's being eased back into things. There's no expectation of when exactly she's going to start for the first time this season, but she is back and she's slowly getting into the thick of things. And down the stretch of the championship run last season, the tournament, we saw her step up and be like all over the place in a multitude of games, in a multitude of ways, on the boards, defensively, in the passing lanes, scoring here and there. So now all of my focus is kind of shifting into, well, how quickly can Ashlyn Watkins kind of get acclimated to how things are running and how things are looking on the floor with this unit? Because in all likelihood, Ashlyn Watkins is probably going to be our best big on the team. And she's not really big. Like, she's just lanky. But she's not a big. So I have concerns. So to answer the question flat out, no, South Carolina is not big enough. But I don't think that means that we can't win a championship. I just think it means that if the road to a championship is going to be playing through the guards, then MiLaysia Fulwiley needs to be unlocked, and Tahina Powell and Raven Johnson have to do what they do best consistently, and Tessa Johnson has to continue to make the progress that she kind of made over the course of last season, so that we can rely on our guards to lead us through what is going to be some tough games in the regular season before we even get to the tournament.
Yeah, you didn't say Chloe Kitt's name once.
I didn't say Chloe Kitt's name once. You're right.
And she's a big part of this. I actually think your best big is between Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins.
She
And I
played
think
great.
right now it's Chloe Kitts, and she didn't play in the NC State game.
Yeah.
But it's really looking like it's going to be a combination of like their front line has to be a sum of all their parts between Adele Tack, Joyce Edwards, Ashlyn Watkins, Sanaya Fagan, and Chloe Kitts. They've got to put it together.
Yeah.
And like it's so like they're not big enough because they don't have 6'7" anymore. And that's my biggest takeaway from the little bit I got to watch of them over the weekend is it doesn't look as unfair anymore. They don't have the same unfair advantage that they would have just lobbing it over the top for a high low or on the second chance opportunities crashing the glass where Camilla would just clean stuff up and everyone's just jumping at her trying to stop her from doing it, and you can't because she's 6'7". And South Carolina still has good bigs. They still have the five I just named. Those are 5 serviceable bigs who will play, who will be in the rotation, and who can bring you different things athletically, finishing, but they don't have the same level of just unfair advantage inside. Their depth is still strong, and I think that's where they're going to still win a lot of games and still be probably in the Final Four and have a chance to win back-to-back because their depth at guard and in the front court is still very strong. I'm just like, man, if they go up against a complete team that has a big like a Lauren Betts or someone who can wear them out inside. I just think my biggest takeaway from watching them, one of them was MiLaysia, which I'm always kind of keeping an eye on. But the other thing offensively was just like, man, they don't have the same luxury inside. I mean, and that's what happens when you lose 6-7, obviously.
You mentioned Lauren Betts and there's so many other like talented bigs this season that we're going to potentially maybe have to run into when we talk about winning a championship. We might have to see a Lauren Betts. We might have to see a Kiki Iriafen. We might have to run into LSU again. We might have to run into, Reagan Beers again. Like there are players across the country who are really good rebounders. There are teams across the country who have a size advantage. And to your point, we don't have that anymore. And so again, I 100% think that this team can be figured out in a way that works for this team, but this is going to be different. I think there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made offensively. I think there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made defensively. Down the stretch of the season, throughout the course of the tournament, South Carolina was one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Offensively, defensively, rebound percentage, like all of those things, they were amongst the top. It's not looking like that's going to be the case this season. And so what that means is if you're not going to be getting all the second chance opportunities we were getting last season, you have to be efficient each possession down the floor. Because if you're going to be playing against a team like UCLA, who has a player in Lauren Betts who's already averaging 10 plus, looks like she's going to be averaging 11, 12 boards a game, you're going to have to figure it out. If you're going to be playing up against a Reagan Beers, you're going to be playing up against even someone like an Audi Crooks who's a little bit smaller, but she showed us last season, her freshman year, that she's physical. Like if these are the matches that we're getting down low and we can't win them because we don't have a 6'7" player like Camila Cardoso, then that means the front court that we do have need to step it up. But also, again, the backcourt's got to figure it out. And I don't know what that looks like. Like, I don't know if that means that MiLaysia needs to be on the ball more. I don't know if that means that Tessa needs to see the floor more. Like, I don't know what exactly needs to be worked out. But again, it's a really small sample size. So I'm not like panicking or freaked out or anything like that. I do still think that we can and will win a championship again this season. But there are a lot of questions right now. And the name of the game for South Carolina for many of the past couple of seasons has been size. This season, we don't have it. So we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to go back to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I don't think they look unbeatable. Like they did last year. They just don't look unbeatable. They still look really good. They still look elite. And for all the things we've been talking about, all the reasons we've been talking about, it feels like, I mean, again, they're going to be really good. They're going to start. I don't know what their toughest game is coming up or whatever, what their schedule looks like. But, it feels like we're going to see this group have to kind of improve as the year goes on. I mean, they look okay for now. and they're going to be able to beat teams because of their depth and their discipline and all that. They have enough to do it. But yeah, I look forward to seeing a team that can really test them for the first time. NC State looks okay. They didn't look too strong inside. I just think, again, South Carolina's depth. I mean, NC State had a chance to win. They were kind of right there. South Carolina didn't have Chloe Kitts. They were down somebody. So, I think they'll be fine, but I do think we're going to see Dawn Staley really do some real coaching this year to have to develop, individuals like, you made the prediction, Joyce Edwards. We'll play the clip, but you're gonna have to see some players really step up and really get better throughout the course of the year. I do think Tessa will have to. I think she should be in the rotation more than she was throughout the regular season. Most people barely even knew who she was come the tournament, and then she was having these big games because they barely needed her. Felt like they barely used her. Bree Hall was usually the one in that spot throughout the season. I mean, she's another one. Bree Hall can step up and go off kind of at any time too. So they've still got the roster. I just think it's a big difference when you don't have that intimidation factor anymore. And I don't know if they have that without Big Camilla walking through 6'7", towering over everybody. It just feels a little different.
Last thing I'll say before we switch over to our freshman spotlight, I added extra emphasis on Lauren Betts because in 12 days we play UCLA. So that will be a major test in the size of South Carolina, or the lack thereof, going up against a team that has someone that can be impactful offensively and defensively down low. You alluded to it. I did make a prediction about Joyce Edwards, probably a bold one. Let's talk about it. I'm going to go on a limb, right? It's not even a limb. I'm just going to say it right now. I think Joyce Edwards is going to be National Freshman of the Year. I think she's that good. I think she showed that she has that much talent and that much capability on the basketball court to be the best freshman in the country. And I fully expect Joyce, a couple of days ago, she talked about how Dawn Staley has been encouraging her to play a lot more freely. It's a very common theme with Dawn Staley and her freshmen, keeping them comfortable and keeping them playing free, but also being very locked in and in tune with what's happening on the court in real time in games. She came out, and admittedly, she was a little bit nervous, but she was able to sit down and just watch the game kind of opened up. We saw her game open up in those instances as well. I fully expect Joyce Edwards to be the best freshman in the country this season, and I will be watching and keeping a very keen eye on that.
The best
So many
freshman in the country.
So many strong words. Yeah, super biased. Super biased. I love Joyce Edwards. Joyce Edwards is great. There are a lot of talented freshmen in the country. Obviously, I mentioned Joyce Edwards. We posted a reel of Martin talking about Sarah Strong on our Instagram earlier this week. Martin, are there any freshmen you are going to have key on this season that he most of you know of this season?
Well, Ohio
Michigan.
I know. Like she hard play deal. She can rely digging. So her dad, Hooper, to a T.
Watch away.
One of those. She knows how to play sexy and players like that for you points. Freshman is 100. I want to, and now State's gonna have.
I just want to. I Keomi McMiller in her first game. I feel like once I'm heard the task talk teams, we've talked Martin. We know like those are the three predictions to win, and I think going to win the national championship. You are keen eye on.
I don't know. I kind of interested a little bit. I against Virginia the other day, beat them by like them getting loose to big Trent Villanova. She's a scorer. I will deviate at least of the morning of Caitlin Clark. They were fans because she really can score the ball. No one's Caitlin, obviously, but Lucy Olson is a legit flamethrower and can legit score the ball from the perimeter. And even just seeing the way that they're playing, it seems like they're really trying to keep that same style of, the passing culture. And it was just interesting to see the shot distribution, obviously with Caitlin not there. And just it felt like more of an emphasis on pace and ball movement. Personnel wise, I don't know if they have like a bunch of different hitters and shooters and scorers like that, but that's what makes it interesting because it does feel like they are looking to really move the ball, distribute the ball, get it to who's hot. And they seem to have good players. One thing that is interesting is like it seems like they'll play inside more through Hannah Stokey and Addison O'Grady, who were on the floor together a lot. I saw one girl, number 1 on Iowa, Taylor Stremlow. She came off the bench. She made a beautiful pass in transition on the move, over the top, hitting Addison O'Grady in stride for a layup. And that play really stood out to me as how I feel like Iowa's going to be trying to play. I think they'll surprise some people. Like, I don't know what they'll do in the Big Ten or nationally or anything. Sure. But I think they will fly under the radar. Obviously, they're unranked. No Caitlin. They're no one's really going to be thinking about them. But I think that's why they'll surprise people because of their play style, and they still have really good players. Hannah Stokey and Addison O'Grady, they're two bigs. They're both mobile, good catchers, good finishers. So I think they're going to give people some problems. Lucy Olson on the perimeter, a legit scorer. Some other pieces in between, other players who look like they just know their roles, know what they're doing. So I'm going to keep an eye on Iowa. I think at the very least, they're still going to be playing pretty good basketball this year.
I think the big one, the big one for me is UCLA. I talked a big game for UCLA last season in the tournament as we were kind of doing our tournament coverage. I am very interested to see what UCLA looks like. They had a big transfer in Janiah Barker. She transferred from Texas A&M. She's gotten off to a bit of a slow start. She's on a new team trying to still figure things out a bit. So I definitely think she'll kind of revert back to what we saw her look like at Texas A&M as season progresses. But dude, Lauren Betts, she's on pace right now. And again, it's a really small sample size, but so far what we've seen from her is she's looking like she's going to have a career year in her junior year this season. She's already, as I mentioned earlier, looking like she's going to be a lock for about 23-12, 25-11 a night. She's crashing boards hard. The game, we talk a lot as the season dwindled. We talked a lot about like Nafisa Collier and even like a Jonquo Jones, and we talked a little about like Stewie, how like the game just comes really easy to them and how they make it look easy, and it's like everything just slows down. In a little bit I've got to see Lauren Betts play basketball, it feels like it's the same way. Like she's very comfortable. She knows where her spots are. She gets to her spots, and it looks like everything just comes really, really easy to her. I'm really excited to see what she is going to look like this season. I know she missed a couple games down the stretch there in the tournament. Didn't really affect the outcome of their season all that well. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't expect UCLA to win a national championship or anything like that. But like, if they're going to compete for a national championship, which I certainly think they could, if Lauren Betts continues to play this way, it would be because Lauren Betts is going to continue to play this way, because she's looking like one of the best bigs, if not the best big in the country right now so far through the first week or so of the season. So I'm really excited to see how she's going to continue to grow and develop over the course of the season. Of course, how Janiah Barker is going to continue to kind of grow and develop and find her role and her rhythm in this new team and this new situation as well, because I think once she gets clicking as well, that's going to spell trouble for a lot of other teams across the country, and that means a really successful year for UCLA as well.
Right. Yeah. I feel like Lauren Betts should be in the running to have I mean, she should be hunting the title of best big in the country, best center in the country with Camilla gone. Like I was talking about with what South Carolina lost in that unfair height advantage luxury. UCLA has that in Lauren Betts. She's big and she's skilled, and that's their advantage. So you mentioned the matchup they have coming up. That's going to be real interesting. That's going to be real interesting and a big test for UCLA to see where they are. I still think Kiki Rice is the key for that team. When we saw her really kind of hit another gear in the tournament and have some big games, I think that's when they look their best. Charisma Osborne, London Jones, obviously, huge pieces as well. But the UCLA, they could be, I wouldn't just dismiss them as saying they're not going to win a national championship. I mean, I know you said they might compete, but I wouldn't dismiss it and say, I don't think they're going to. I think they could be there.
I do think this year's national championship belongs to UConn, USC, or South Carolina.
Okay.
I think but kind of similar to how like around this time of year last season, I was very adamant about like how we could have seen Notre Dame in an Elite Eight situation. I can see UCLA in an Elite Eight. I can see UCLA making a deep run in the tournament. I just don't know yet right now if they've really got it all figured out. And to your point, that game on the 24th in 12 days is going to be a great initial test to see just how they stack up against one of these, teams that we're expecting to compete or win a championship in South Carolina. They win that game. I think you have to look at them and say, oh, this is a bona fide championship contender. I think right now there are certainly people that might expect it of them. I think right now, though, looking at them and saying they make a deep run in the tournament, especially considering what they did last season, shouldn't be, a far-fetched idea at all. But if Lauren Betts continues to play the way that she's been playing so far through the first week or so of the season, and she cements herself as the best center in the country, they might be the one to cut down the nets and win it all when it's all said and done.
They'll have a chance. They'll have a chance for sure. They'll have a chance, man. Because they have such good players, and they'll get better each year together. So they have a pretty big window because their best players have been young. So even if it's not this year, could be next year. They're in the mix. I mean, UCLA or USC obviously kind of is overshadowing them a little bit, but they're both there. And it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be really, really fun. The other thing I want to say, I want to give a quick shout out to the hometown team. UMD are looking really good. We posted a reel about them earlier today as well, about an hour or so before the show. UMD, I think, as you mentioned, to kind of echo you, like they're going to be an interesting situation in the Big Ten. I'm really excited to see how they kind of all mold. They got a big win on Sunday over Duke, 85-80. They're 3-0 on the season. They're looking really good. They're looking confident. That's another team where I'm really interested to see, kind of how their season plays out as well, because I think they can make some noise too. Maybe even be a back bracket buster and get an upset when we get to that point. But so far through 3 games, they're looking like an interesting team to want to keep an eye on as well.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, in that case, we can go ahead and wrap it up. It's always a pleasure talking women's basketball with my guy, Martin Sories. For all of you guys that tapped in with us live, thanks for tuning in